Welcome to Prajim Technologies. I am Venkat. This is part 20 of ASP.NET video series. In this session, we'll learn about the practical application of Server.MapPath method. Before continuing with this session, I strongly recommend to watch part 19 of this video series, where we have discussed the basics of Server.MapPath method. We know that Server.MapPath method returns the physical path for a given virtual path. This method can be used in several different ways depending on the characters that we pass in to this method. The dot character returns the current physical directory of the executing page, whereas dot dot returns the parent directory of the executing page, and tilde symbol resolves to the root directory of the web application project. We have discussed about this in part 19 of this video series. Let's actually look at an example. Here I have a simple ASP.NET web application project, and if you look at this page in electronics folder.aspx page, it's present in electronics folder, which is present in categories, and this categories folder is present in sample web project. Okay, now let's say on this page I want to drag and drop a drop down list control, and then within I want to bind this drop down list control to countries.xml file. If you look at this countries.xml file, it has got a list of countries here, so I want to display these countries within this drop down list control. So obviously if you look at the locations of these two files, the countries.xml file is present in countries folder, which is present in data, and this data is present in the root directory of the web application project, whereas page in electronics folder.aspx is present in electronics folder, which is present in categories, and that's present in the root directory. So if this page has to find this file, it has to navigate to the root directory, and from there go to the data folder and then to the countries folder and then retrieve this file. Okay, so let's write simple code to actually read that XML file. And we have seen in the previous sessions of this video series how to bind an XML file to a drop-down list. Alright, so since we are going to use a data set is present in system.data namespace, so let's import that. Let's create a data set because that's the simplest ways to read the XML file. So dataset ds is equal to new dataset ds.readXML. So obviously to this method we have to pass in the path of the file. Okay, so obviously if you have to pass in the physical path of the file, then you have to retrieve that. So how do we retrieve the physical path of the file? We can use the server.MapPath method. Okay, because to server.MapPath method you can pass in a virtual path which gets resolved to the physical path of that particular file. Okay, so I want to get to the this particular file. Now if I just say server.MapPath and then if I specify the name of the file countries.xml, by default what's going to happen, the server.MapPath will actually look for that file within the executing directory. Now this is the current directory where this page is present. So when you say countries.xml, the server.MapPath method tries to look in that directory itself, but we don't have countries.xml within that folder. Okay, it's actually present in countries.xml, countries folder. So if you have to find that, you have to come all the way to the root directory. From the root directory you have to go to the data directory, within which you will have to go to countries and then find this countries.xml. Okay, so obviously to get to the root directory of the web application project, since you are 2 levels deep in relation to the root directory of the web application project folder, you will have to use dot dot forward slash dot dot. So dot dot forward slash dot dot forward slash. So these two dots will navigate me back to the categories. These two dots will navigate me back to the root directory. So from the root directory I have to go to the data folder and then to the countries folder. So obviously data and then countries / countries.xml. So this is the virtual path that I have to pass in to the server.MapPath method, which can return me the correct physical path of this particular file. And once we have read that data into the data set, we can simply bind that to the drop-down list. So drop-down list 1 dot data source is equal to that data set, and drop-down list 1 dot data bind. And obviously we need to specify the data text field and data value field of the drop-down list. We have spoken about binding an XML file to a drop-down list in the previous sessions of this video series. So data text field, and we need to specify the data value field as well. So if you look at this, I want the data text field to be the country name and data value field to be the country ID. Let's copy and paste it here. Okay, that's it. So if we run this now, as you might expect, we will be able to correctly read that XML file and display the data within the drop-down list. Obviously, I think we binded the country ID as the text. Yeah, that's why we see the country IDs instead of country names. So let's correct that. Alright, so if we run this now, as you might expect, we will see the country names within the drop-down list. Okay, so we can see all the countries there. So, but then, is this the best way to do this? Maybe not, because it works here fine without no issues, because you have computed how to navigate to the root directory, because I am 2 levels deep relative to the root web application directory. I used dot dot forward slash dot dot. But just imagine if I want to display the same drop-down list and same data in this page in root directory.aspx. Let's try to copy this and paste it within this page. Okay, is this going to work? No, this will break. First of all, let's correct this error. Since data set is present in system.data, let's import that namespace there. Okay, and we don't have a drop-down list on this page, so let's drag and drop a drop-down list control onto this page. Okay, so now if you look at this one, when I compile the solution, I don't get any compilation error. Okay, but then when we actually run this page, this page in root directory.aspx, this page is going to crash, and you can understand why. Because if you look at this page, this is already in the root directory of the web application project. And then look at this. So when you say dot dot, it tries to go to the parent directory. Now, beyond the root of your web application project, you don't have any other directory. You cannot navigate. So trying to navigate beyond, the root directory of the project will throw an error. So obviously, this will return an error. Okay, so that's why, anytime you want to navigate to the root directory, I always suggest use the tilde character. But let's run this and see if we actually get an error. We should get an error. Okay, so cannot use leading to exit above the top directory. And what's the top directory for us? This sample web folder. You cannot navigate beyond that folder. That's why we get this error. On the other hand, look at this. Even this page works fine. Why? Because you're 2 levels deep. Dot dot forward slash dot dot will correctly navigate you to the root. From the root, you want to go to the data folder and then into the countries and then read countries.xml, and that's what this says. This works fine. Instead of making this complicated, we know that we have to come back to the root directory and then go to the data folder and then countries folder. You can simply use the tilde character, and that's the best way to do this. Okay, no matter how deep you are in the folder level in relation to the root directory of the web application project, once you use tilde character, that will automatically be resolved to the root directory of the web application project. So now if I copy paste this code in any page in my web application project, it's just going to work fine as long as you have this countries.xml within this path. Okay, so if I copy paste this code here, it's going to work without any issues. So I run this now, it's going to work exactly the same as page in electronics folder.aspx. Okay, so we can see the list of countries there. If I try to run this page, the same code should run there as well. Alright. So the tilde symbol resolves to the root application directory no matter how deep you are in the folder hierarchy. This is the advantage of using tilde over the two dots. And this code will work from any folder in our application. Okay, whereas the following code will only work from folders that are 2 levels deeper relative to the root directory of the application. Because why you use dot dot forward slash dot dot? A single dot dot will resolve to the parent directory. If you have another dot dot following that, then it tries to go to the parent directory above that. And if you are already in the root, and if you try to use dot dot, you cannot navigate beyond the root directory. You will get a runtime error, not a compile time error, and runtime errors are always dangerous. On this slide, you can find resources for ASP.NET C# and SQL Server interview questions. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.